A ship sailing across the vast ocean met with a terrible disaster. The vessel was destroyed, and all its passengers were lost to the sea except for one man. By the grace of God, he managed to survive and, after struggling against the waves, found himself washed ashore on a deserted island. When he regained consciousness, he realized he was completely alone. Desperate and afraid, he raised his hands toward the sky and prayed, "Oh God, please help me. Send me some aid." Days passed, but no help arrived. Each morning, he would wake up and repeat his prayers, but the island remained desolate. Accepting his fate, the man decided to survive on his own. He gathered wood and dried grass to build a small hut for shelter. He scavenged the remains of the broken ship, collecting whatever useful items he could find. His days were spent catching fish, collecting coconuts, and finding ways to sustain himself. Though life was tough, he held on to hope. The days turned into weeks, and loneliness became his greatest challenge. He spent time exploring the island, hoping to find signs of human life, but there were none. His only company was the sound of the waves and the rustling leaves in the wind. At night, he often stared at the starry sky, wondering if he would ever be rescued. The longing for companionship grew stronger with each passing day. One evening, after lighting a fire to cook his food, he left to gather more supplies. Upon returning, he was devastated to find his hut engulfed in flames. His only refuge had turned to ashes. Overcome with sorrow and frustration, he looked up at the sky and cried out, "Oh God, why have you forsaken me? I prayed for help, and instead, you took away the only thing I had." Anger and disappointment filled his heart, and he continued to lament until exhaustion claimed him, and he fell asleep on the beach. The next morning, he was awakened by the sound of voices and the distant rumble of a ship. Rubbing his eyes in disbelief, he saw a vessel anchored near the shore. Overjoyed, he ran toward it, waving his arms in excitement. Help had finally arrived. Once aboard, he turned to the captain and asked, "How did you know I was here?" The captain smiled and replied, "We saw the signal fire coming from the island. We knew someone was in need of rescue, so we came to investigate." The man stood in shock. "But I didn't send any signal fire," he murmured. Then realization struck him. The fire that had destroyed his hut, the very fire he had cursed, was the signal that led to his rescue. It was then that he understood. What seemed like a disaster was actually part of God's plan to save him. With a grateful heart, he looked toward the sky and whispered, "Thank you, God. Your plan was greater than mine." This story teaches us a valuable lesson. In life, we often make plans and expect things to go a certain way. But when challenges arise and our plans fail, we lose faith, questioning why things are happening against our wishes. However, we must remember that God has a plan for each of us, one that is greater than we can imagine. Sometimes, what seems like a hardship is actually a hidden blessing leading us to something better. So, whenever you feel like everything is falling apart, have faith. Perhaps the setback you face today is setting you up for something greater tomorrow. Life's uncertainties may be painful, but trust that every hardship is shaping you into the person you are meant to become. When all seems lost, remember that God's plan is always bigger, bolder, and better than anything you could have envisioned for yourself.